If you want to be a content creator, I'd say your camera gear and equipment is at least somewhat important. I'm not going to make this drawn out video today about how the camera equipment doesn't matter whatsoever. Instead, I'm going to lean into it and just give you guys the best of the best at different levels, because obviously to an extent, some of it does matter. If you want to improve as a creator over time, you obviously need to have good video and audio to get there. The catch is how much you can honestly do with cheaper equipment. We'll talk about that today. But hey, maybe you're the type of person that just has a lot of fucking money and you don't care. I'm not your dad, so we're still going to talk about those products today as well. I'm going to try my best today to talk about equipment that works across all content creation. Obviously, a lot of this stuff would do super well for YouTube videos. And while this video is not sponsored, I am going to be biased today in things that are just my experience. I have not tried every single camera in the world. I have not tried every single microphone. So I'm just going to talk about the shit that I know I could talk about, and hopefully that's helpful for you all. So first and foremost, let's dive into cameras. Now, cameras most of the time are pretty important unless you're like a faceless YouTube creator, but even for some creators, cameras are still important because they just do voiceovers while still recording things in the world. I am going to be annoying and first just simply suggest that in 2024, your cell phones, if they are within the last few years, are perfect starters when needing your first camera. It's not 2010. Your recent iPhones, Google Pixels, Samsungs, even your off brands have really good internal cameras. Some of the biggest YouTubers in the world still use iPhones today to shoot all their videos. So it would be ignorant of me to not at least suggest the idea like, hey, if you don't have the budget to buy a camera right now, maybe you should just start off with your phone, because at least you're doing something with a decent camera. But I still have a list of cameras for suggestions. The next suggestion is going to be the GoPro. Alongside with my iPhone, I actually use the GoPro a lot in my videos as well, especially with like the time-lapse features. And as no surprise to me, nobody ever makes the comments like, oh, I noticed that you're recording on your iPhone or your GoPro now in comparison to your Sony FX3. Nobody actually fucking cares. People just want to make sure you're telling the story and to continue to be able to visually share that story alongside it. And honestly, with phones and GoPros in 2024, they do an amazing job at competing with these expensive mirrorless DSLR cameras. But I totally get the idea of like using this might be weird for some people. Like sometimes you just really do want a camera. Like you want to feel the physical use of using a real camera for shooting your content. A reason why I'm going to talk about so many Sony cameras today is because I feel like they have capitalized in the content creator market through and through. Are there other brands that have good cameras? Absolutely. From my experience, what they offer at every single level, it's just going to be a lot of Sony conversation today. So you actually got great starter cameras like the Sony ZV-1F coming in at $400, or the Sony ZV-1F starter kit coming in at $650. Again, is it a full frame mirrorless camera that can shoot 4K 120? Absolutely not. But is it a camera that you can use for both long and short form content that would at least create a good enough shot to keep a viewer engaged and also have audio input options? The answer is yes, it does. I think for $400 to $650, depending if you get the kit, I think these are great starter cameras. You get the flip out screen, you get the wind mount on top of it, or you can plug an external microphone into it and you got a little hot shoe at the top. Like I would have killed to start off with a camera like this. They're just so convenient. And then for people that maybe have a larger budget or did start off with this camera and you're looking for a little bit of an upgrade, you have similar cameras like the Sony ZV-E10, which is coming in at $700, the Sony a6700 coming in at $1,400. And by the way, so that way I don't drag out this video today with every little spec and tack, I'm just going to link all the cameras, lenses, microphones down below. I'm just simply having a conversation about suggesting or introducing this product to you. I highly recommend that you do some of your research on this yourself to see if it would be a good fit for you. I just want to point out real quick that I know a lot of people are going to be super concerned about the online talk specs. You're going to want to know which one of these can shoot in S-Log and RAW and 4K 120. And I'm so fucking over talking about these things based around the conversation of just content creation. Because sure, including things like 4K 120 and S-Log 3 or shooting RAW into cameras is really good for people that want a lot of control and are really into the hobby. But the vast majority of content creators just simply need a camera that can get the shot and can get it effectively and efficiently. I guess all I'm simply trying to say is for all the individuals out there like myself that are just super creative nerds, not everybody gives a fuck about having every little detail into a camera that just makes it cinema-like. Some people literally just need to be able to turn something on, have the camera produce at least decent quality, be okay in low light, and have options for good audio inputs. Not everything needs to be a Netflix movie production in 2024. However, if you're getting into the Sony a6700 price range, which is $1,400, you're getting closer to where, sure, you can kind of splurge on better cameras, like the one that I'm shooting on right now, the Sony FX30. And by the way, just to back out the things that I'm saying today about people overstressing stuff, you always hear the argument of crop sensor versus full frame. And like, to be a professional, you have to run on full frame. I bet you had no idea that I'm shooting on a crop sensor camera right now, and have been in the last few videos. It's because we were watching this video on YouTube or vertically on TikTok and Instagram. You can't tell the real difference between full frame and crop sensor unless you're really, really looking for it for the sake of an argument. So obviously, if you want my opinion on, hey, BigE, should I go full frame or crop sensor? You kind of know that. I have a whole entire video talking about the difference between the two. But honestly, as a content creator in 2024, they really don't matter. It just really depends on how much you're into the hobby of like cameras, tech, and gear, and how much money you have. Because you can clearly see here that having one over the other doesn't draw an extreme benefit to where like it's just gonna throw your shit out there because you shoot in full frame over crop sensor. Good content, good storytelling goes a long way regardless of the equipment that you do have. But anyways, without the lecture, sure, you're getting into like this $1,600 price range. I can't recommend the FX30 enough. I honestly think this is one of the best cameras for content creators in 2024 and will be for the years to come. The options that you get with this camera, the lenses are so much cheaper when it comes to crop sensor. I just think for content creation, this camera just shits on so many other cameras in the market right now. But let's just say you want to do full frame, you have the money for it, or maybe you've had a full frame for years and you're looking to step up. First and foremost, I'd say the Sony a7 IV is an amazing camera, a good run and gun all around. It's a little bit more expensive, coming in at $2,300. For everything that you get in this, it's just an amazing, reliable camera for creatives and content creators. And then finally, we obviously have to mention the Sony FX3. Now, this is a $3,700 camera, so you really have to be like a different level of needing this. The only reason that I even have one is because for years, while I was creating my content, I was also creating stuff for other brands and products. I more so bought the Sony FX3 because I needed it as a tool for all the brands I was working with, and I just had the benefit of using it as a content creator as well. It's an insane camera. And like, look, are there better cameras than that? Sure. But like, when you're talking content creation, and I just want to make it very clear, that's what we're talking about today. We're not talking about you're making a documentary for Netflix and you want to know the best camera to use. We're not talking movie production here. We're talking creating content. We're talking you're a gardener and you want to start making gardening videos and how-tos and tutorials and just progress updates. We're trying to say maybe you're a gaming content creator that's got a rather large following and you want to start a daily vlog series on a different channel. What kind of cameras are going to be good for that? So in that world and discussion, sure, there are $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 cameras out there that are unfucking believable, but you don't need it. Anyways, moving on, let's talk about some of the lenses that stack up well with these Sony cameras. For crop sensor, I'm going to recommend a few here. You got the 10 to 20 millimeter for $750. This is your like vlogging style lens for the crop sensor Sony bodies. And then I have to suggest the lens that I'm shooting on today, the Sony 15 millimeter 1.4. Now there is a cheaper alternative to this, which is the Sigma 16 millimeter, but I like that just little extra millimeter of wideness that I get with the Sony. And I just think this is a much sharper and better colored lens, just my opinion and my experience. And then another good one is the Tamron series. They have a 17 to 70 millimeter f2.8 lens for crop sensor Sony camera bodies. It's an incredible lens. Now, let's say you're a full frame user, so you want some full frame lens recommendations. The Tamron 17 to 28 f2.8 is an $800 lens. It's kind of a dulled down variant of the 16 to 35 from Sony, but it's an amazing lens. I actually used that lens for 3 years during my like up and coming content creation. I used that lens while creating tens of thousands of dollars of content for other brands and even content for myself. It's an amazing lens. Next, I gotta suggest the 16 to 35 f4. The reason I gotta recommend this lens is it's much smaller. It is a lot sharper than the other cheaper f4, and it's got that digital zoom. It's just such a convenient run and gun content creator lens. Again, I can't emphasize enough that the thing we're talking about today is just in the idea of like, you're your own person, you're your own brand, and you're just trying to create content for social media. In that aspect, the 16 to 35 f4 is an amazing lens. And then obviously if you have a fuck ton of money or you just don't care or you're an idiot, like me, you go with the 16 to 35 f2.8. It's a $2,300 lens, which is just insane when you say it out loud, but it really is like one of the peak Sony full frame lenses that you can get. It's just a beautiful all around workhorse of a lens. I can't recommend it enough for the people that can get it. So we talked about cameras. Now let's move on to microphones. And this really is the side that's really slept on. A lot of people are worried about like that visual cinematic look and then neglect their audio, which most people are going to click off a video if it has horrible audio versus horrible video. First off, you have the tried and true Rode Video Mic Go 2. This is coming in at $100. I mean, it's Rode. Rode has been around for years. It's been one of the vlogger shotgun microphones for the last 10 years. Rode knows what they're doing. It's an amazing lens. If you want to stick with a Sony brand, Sony does have the Sony Vlogger mic, which is like $10 more expensive, but it's the same idea. It's got the external cable going out from the microphone into the input of the camera. But there is a series of microphones from Sony that are pretty sick. I, for example, use the ECM B1M. I don't know why they come up with these stupid fucking names, but it is a more expensive microphone. It's $350. I got this in 2021, and it is still my favorite microphone for Sony cameras to date. What makes this thing so special is it's digital. So you just simply put it on top of your Sony camera and you don't have any external cable. It's got a lot of amazing options for noise canceling, the direction that you want to pick up the audio. I know it's more expensive, but for content creators, I can't recommend this microphone enough. And they do have different variants of this microphone, like I think a cheaper option from it. Next, I got to recommend the DJI Mic 2 wirelesses. Rode has an option as well. I've just been a bigger fan of the DJI. I have both of them, so I'm just going to recommend the DJI. I mean, if you're just like a Rode diehard, the Wireless Go 2 Pros or whatever are really good, but I don't know. I like the design of DJI. I feel like it's got a longer battery life, easier to use and charge. I don't know. I can't recommend the DJI enough. But regardless, I know these wireless mics are $400, a little bit more expensive, but what makes them so good is they will work on your DSLR cameras. They'll work with your cell phones, and they actually have internal recording as well. So you don't even need to input the audio into the camera that you're using. So you could use something like that, record it directly to the receiver, and just use your iPhone and then sync everything up in post. From there, maybe you create content like this, where it's more sit down, more structured, or maybe your main content is streaming. So you want a solid microphone that's just going to stay put on the desk. I've been using the Rode PodMic for years. It's an amazing, cheaper alternative to this, coming in at $100. There's a USB version as well that's coming in at $200. I think if you're looking for a podcast style microphone, it is one of the best entry-level mics to get for that. And then obviously I have to recommend the Shure MV7, which is a $280 USB, and it might even also be XLR as well. I know a lot of people are using it. I just don't know enough about it. But again, one of those things where if you really have the money and you really turn this into something and you really just want what I feel like is some of the best of the best, Shure SM7B, tried and true. People have been using this for decades now, and it gets the job done. However, the only caveat is you will need additional things to this, so sit tight for that. But again, guys, when it comes to microphones for cameras, for your desk, for your studio, there are a lot of other amazing brands and options out there. If you have suggestions, feel free to let us know in the comments down below. I'm not basing today's video in any way, shape, or form around this idea that if it's not on my list, it's trash. Feel free to share some other products that you guys know of in the comments down below. Now, if you are going to go with a Shure SM7B or microphones like this, you're going to need some additional things, because the Rode PodMic and this doesn't have just enough power to power itself just from an audio interface. Now, for the audio interface, I'm going to recommend what I use, the Focusrite Scarlett. Been using it for years, gets the job done. Very simple, pretty affordable. Now, a lot of people with these mics recommend what's called a cloud lifter, which the mic plugs into that, and then it's this little box, and then that plugs into your camera, your audio interface, wherever your XLR cable goes. However, I'm going to recommend the DBX286S preamp. And what this is it's like the same idea. You plug your mic into this, and then from there you plug that preamp into something that you're recording the audio from. But instead of it just simply powering the mic, you can also change the settings as well. The reason why my mic sounds the way it does is because this preamp adjusts the settings in here to deliver the audio directly to whatever device. So instead of needing the power supply and then wanting to change how the mic sounds on your computer, you just use this preamp and you knock them both out in one. And why I think this is so much better than the Cloud Lifter is it's only $30 more and you get to control everything directly from here. But let's say you don't want to deal with any of that and you just want one device that can take the input and it just sounds good and you can direct all your audio from there. You don't want an audio interface in the Cloud Lifter or preamp or whatever. I'm going to recommend the Rodecaster Duo. It is an insane mixer. You got dual input, a lot of automatic settings. You get a lot of different inputs. So if you are a streamer, you can coordinate that way. But whether you're a content creator doing voiceovers or a YouTube creator needing a nice sit down shot like this, you can record internally to that. You can record to an SD or you can record to your computer from the mixer. You got some pre-programmable buttons that you can do on the right side. It's got Bluetooth. I love it. Now, I know this isn't like really gear, but I just wanted to kind of bring up editing software as well. I personally use Adobe Premiere. I know some people use Final Cut, but if you're looking for free versions, there's DaVinci Resolve. I know a lot of creators that use this program from starting off all the way to professional work. Can't recommend that enough. If you're looking for a free vertical version, you got CapCut. iMovie is great for iPhone footage. And then there's an app called OpenShot as well. Heard it's a little buggy. It's not like that good, but for free, it gets the job done. I'm going to make lighting really simple, and I'm just going to suggest the light that I use, the Godox SL 60 watt. It's a $110 light by itself. You can get whatever softbox and stand that you want that will go with this, or you can buy an entire kitted version for $250 where you get this big stand, you get a big softbox. So if you want to get this like professional lighting look, that's what I would just recommend. And yes, I would also recommend this for streamers as well. A lot of people are probably going to ask why I'm not recommending those like streamer panels. I hate those. I think they're so annoying while you're streaming, like having a big bright light in your face. You actually don't need the light directly on you. Having your light off to the side will make it look much more cinematic and flattering. So that's why I'm going to make it easy. Recommend the Godox. I've been using it for 5 years now. I can't be happier. Finally, now let's talk about creating this content on devices. Like, so you got all the gear, now you need to edit it somewhere. I want to point off once again, depending on the style of your content, I know a lot of creators, whether they were vertical or long form, started off editing on their cell phones through just the basic software like CapCut, for example, that you can use on your cell phone. I think there's also Adobe Rush as well, if you're willing to pay the membership on that. But it's actually kind of crazy the power that cell phones, tablets, iPads have in 2024. Yes, if you are more entry level, if you're not creating film production stuff, you're using just more standard level video quality and whatnot, you can edit on these devices. But for the most part, I'm going to assume that a lot of people watching this video, it's going to be more like entry level content creators, people starting off. So I really want to capitalize on talking about laptops today, because I think it's just super important to find a good editing laptop that you can work from. I mean, if you're going to build your own PC and you know enough about PCs, I think you're kind of in the understanding of what you need for a PC. You know, 32 gigabytes of RAM or more, having a terabyte or two of SSD internal storage, having a higher end 20 series, your 30 series, your 40 series, any of those graphics cards from these previous years mixed with the 32 gigabytes of RAM will get the job done. You can get away with 16 gigabytes depending on the footage that you're using. Again, it's very subjective. If you're doing just 1080p videos, just more stuff from the camera, not worrying about the highest bit rate, you can get away with a cheaper PC and a laptop. As to where if you're using the highest bit rate and your files are like 50 gigabytes, you're gonna need a little bit more power to work with that footage. So a couple laptops that I recommend are the Asus ZenBook S13. It's a $1,200 laptop, and this is more of your entry level. Again, it can get a lot of the shit that most people need done. You need something a little higher end, want to spend more money. You got the Asus ZenBook Pro series. The 14 is like $2,100. I believe there's a 16 version that's a little bit more. Again, with those, you could do your own research as to what specs you need, and you're probably going to find more expensive versions of each single one. Same thing goes for the MacBook series. I recommend the MacBook Air 13, which is $1,300 starting off. The reason why all these that I'm recommending, whether they're entry level or higher end, is so good is if you need to manage and do other things, you can do that. They're not just simply for video editing. These are good laptops for planning, production, design, being a creative through and through. After the MacBook Air, you break into the MacBook Pro M3, $1,700 right now. I actually did a Pro M3 series on my latest MacBook instead of the M3 Max because the M3 Pro is a really, really good chip. I just maxed out the storage and the RAM on mine, and that thing is a fucking tank. But again, for the Pro M3, $1,700 entry level. If you want to go more higher end, get the M3 Max, you're looking at $2,900 entry. And honestly, with the M3 Pro and the M3 Pro Max, that's where you're getting into the territory where you could just work with Sony FX3 footage at like the highest bit rate, and those devices will be able to work with it. You really don't have to question if like the higher end ZenBook Pro series and the higher end MacBook Pro series can handle that, because it's going to pretty much handle anything that you could throw at it. And once again, I know there's other laptops out there. I know the Surface series is pretty decent. MSI makes good laptops, HP, Acer, a couple other brands, but I'm just going based off of the experience that I've actually had. I've used Asus ZenBooks. I've used MacBooks. I know they work well with creating content. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've gotten to the point where I am today because I've used some of the things that I've mentioned today along the journey. And hey, if it helped me grow my brand and I found success from using a lot of these products, I guess my simple question is, why can't you? Again, everything is listed down below today. If you have other suggestions from other brands, please don't be a dick about it. Just simply let us know, like alternatives. Like, hey, instead of getting a GoPro, I got this. This is how much that was. Hey, instead of using a Sony entry-level camera, I use this. It's on sale and it does this and that. I'm completely open for conversation and learning about other stuff. And hey, maybe someday I'll test some of these things. What I do want to avoid in today's video is you being a cocksucker because you tie yourself to a brand and I didn't mention that brand. You'll get over it. It's fine. That's all I got for you guys today. I'm out. Peace. Deuces.